Welcome to American National Government. In this course, you will discuss the purpose, structure, and evolution of United States government. I'm Jordan O'Connell, History and Government Instructor at Northeast Iowa Community College. This lecture distills a decade of my written notes taken from American Government Roots and Reform, American Government by Lenz and Holman, and our course-assigned OpenStax American Government textbook. This lecture focuses on partisan identification in the voter signal. The core question is this: how much of a vote belongs to conviction and how much belongs to party identity, habit, fear, and the shortcuts citizens use to survive information overload? The core competency is to cite examples of factors that influence party identification and voter decision-making. How much of a vote belongs to conviction and how much belongs to party identity, habit, fear, and the shortcuts citizens use to survive information overload? The pressure moves through party labels, family habits, campaign data, media cues, registration rules, and the shortcuts citizens use under information overload. The fantasy version of voting imagines a citizen sitting quietly with full information, reading every policy paper, weighing every candidate, comparing every record, and reaching a clean decision. That citizen barely exists. Most voters live busy lives, know some issues better than others, trust some sources more than others, inherit political habits from families and communities, and use party labels as signals. This is not automatically foolish. It is how human beings navigate an enormous political machine without spending their entire lives as full-time researchers. The civic problem is that shortcuts can both help and deceive. Party identification gives voters a low information signal about ideology, coalition, judges, taxes, regulation, rights, foreign policy, and governing style. A voter who knows nothing about a local candidate may still infer something from the party label. That can make democracy more usable. It can also make voters loyal to a brand even when a candidate, policy, or scandal should force reconsideration. A heuristic is a shortcut for decision-making. Voters use heuristics because information costs time. Party label, candidate image, endorsements, incumbency, issue ownership, economic performance, and trusted community cues all reduce complexity. The question is not whether voters use shortcuts. They do. The question is whether the shortcuts help citizens make responsible judgments or replace judgment with belonging. Party identification is especially powerful because it becomes part of identity. Many citizens vote for a party and think of themselves as Democrats, Republicans, Independents, Conservatives, Liberals, Moderates, or people who reject politics altogether. Family stories, region, religion, race, education, class, media diet, and major events shape those attachments. By the time a campaign advertisement appears, the voter may already possess a political map of friends, threats, heroes, and villains. Voting behavior research emerged because scholars noticed that citizens often did not act like detached policy calculators. Many people vote according to party attachment, group identity, retrospective judgment, candidate impression, or a few salient issues rather than full platform analysis. That finding should not shock anyone who understands the scale of American government. A ballot may include president, senator, representative, governor, state legislators, judges, county offices, sheriff, school board, referenda, and local offices. No ordinary citizen can master every office equally. Party identification supplies structure. Political socialization begins early through family conversations, neighborhood assumptions, religious communities, schools, peers, local history, and media habits. A child may absorb the idea that one party represents working people, order, faith, rights, business, fairness, patriotism, reform, or resentment long before reading a platform. Those associations may later change, but they give the first framework. Realignment shows how those frameworks can move without vanishing. A region, class, racial group, religious community, or education group may shift party loyalty when issues, leaders, and events reorder the coalition. Those shifts do not happen because voters wake up as brand new individuals. They happen when old signals stop explaining new conflict. Party identification remains powerful, but the content attached to the party label can change. Retrospective voting uses the past as evidence. A voter asks whether incumbents produce peace, growth, competent administration, lower prices, better schools, safer streets, or trustworthy leadership. Prospective voting looks forward, comparing promises and expected performance. Issue voting focuses on specific policy positions such as abortion, guns, immigration, taxes, climate, healthcare, crime, or foreign policy. Candidate image emphasizes perceived competence, honesty, strength, empathy, age, style, identity, or temperament. Each method has a logic. Retrospective voting can hold officials accountable, but it may punish leaders for events they did not cause or reward them for luck. Prospective voting can choose a future direction, but campaign promises may exceed constitutional capacity. Issue voting can reflect principle, but one issue can blind voters to institutional damage elsewhere. Candidate image can detect character, but it can also reward performance over competence. The alternative to shortcuts would be constant intensive study. That sounds virtuous until one remembers the scope of the ballot and the speed of public life. A voter who refuses every shortcut may simply disengage. The better civic question is how to use shortcuts honestly. Party labels can start inquiry. They should not end it. Modern research on voting behavior hardened in stages. The Columbia School emphasized social groups, neighborhood effects, religion, and class as anchors of political choice. The Michigan School later centered party identification as a durable psychological attachment that helps citizens sort complex political information. Those schools disagreed on emphasis, but both rejected the fantasy of the fully detached policy calculator. Party cues also operate inside larger historical shifts. Realignment changes the content attached to a label without destroying the usefulness of the label itself. The New Deal coalition, Southern partisan conversion after civil rights conflict, suburban movement, evangelical mobilization, union decline, and education-based sorting all change what party names signaled. The label stayed short. The social meaning behind it kept moving. Administrative reality shapes whether those signals become votes. Registration deadlines, same-day registration rules, voter ID statutes, early voting periods, absentee ballot procedures, precinct location, transportation, and language access all alter turnout costs. A party label may simplify decision-making, but the ballot still depends on administrative clearance. That is why voter behavior belongs partly to psychology and partly to law. Campaigns understand voter shortcuts and design around them. They do not send the same message to every citizen. They divide voters into base supporters, likely opponents, persuadable voters, low-propensity supporters, donors, volunteers, and turnout targets. Campaign staff use voter files, polling, precinct history, demographic data, consumer data, digital behavior, and issue modeling to decide who receives a door knock, ad, mailer, phone call, text message, or fundraising appeal. The field operation turns those categories into work orders. A campaign may assign volunteers to knock on doors of inconsistent supporters, send mail to older, habitual voters, run digital ads for younger, low-propensity voters, call donors after debate, or send candidate visits to media markets that cover competitive suburbs. The voter experiences this as political noise. The campaign experiences it as a resource spreadsheet with addresses, scores, scripts, and deadlines. This does not mean campaigns possess magical mind control. It means they allocate attention. A campaign with limited time and money must decide whether to persuade a swing voter, energize a base voter, register a new voter, or avoid waking up the opposition. The voter experiences politics as messages. The campaign experiences voters as segments. Swing states reveal the system at presidential scale. Because the Electoral College rewards state-by-state victory, campaigns focus on competitive states where marginal votes can move electoral votes. Voters in safe states still count, but campaigns may spend less time persuading them directly. That affects what voters see, how often candidates visit, and which local issues receive national attention. The voter signal operates inside the territorial filter. Partisanship as identity then shapes interpretation. Two voters can hear the same economic report and process it through different partisan priors. One sees proof of recovery, another sees manipulated numbers or pain hidden beneath averages. One sees a candidate's mistake as human, another sees disqualification. Party identity tells voters whom to trust before the evidence arrives. Party identification is not only a label on a registration form, it is a filter for interpreting reality. Media environments deepen that effect. Citizens choose sources, algorithms register preferences, and social networks reward signals of belonging. Political information arrives mixed with status, anger, humor, fear, and community affirmation. A campaign message does not land on a blank mind. It lands inside a field of existing loyalties. Turnout rules and administrative burdens also shape decision-making. Registration deadlines, voter ID requirements, early voting, mail voting, polling place location, work schedules, transportation, disability access, language access, and trust in election administration affect whether motivation becomes a cast ballot. A voter may prefer a candidate and still fail to vote if the administrative path is too costly. Another voter may vote because parties and civic groups reduce the burden through reminders, rides, registration drives, and social pressure. This means turnout is motivation plus access plus mobilization. A party with strong local organization can convert weak preference into actual votes by making participation easier. It can remind, transport, translate, reassure, and follow up. A party with weak organization may have sympathetic voters who never reach the polls. The signal only counts when the voter clears the administrative path. Incumbency acts as another signal. An incumbent has name recognition, constituent service records, donor networks, media access staff, and a record that voters may reward or punish. Some voters interpret incumbency as competence. Others interpret it as stagnation. Campaigns use or attack that signal depending on position. Independent voters are not always blank slates. Some are true, persuadable voters. Some lean consistently toward one party while rejecting the label. Some dislike parties but hold stable ideological commitments. Some know little and decide late. The word independent, therefore, describes a registration or self-description, not a single psychology. Low information voting should also receive less contempt and more discipline. A voter using a party label may be acting rationally if the label predicts judicial appointments, tax policy, agency behavior, and legislative coalitions better than a candidate's polished biography. The problem begins when the voter refuses correction after the signal fails. A shortcut is responsible only if it can be updated. Federalist number 10 enters this topic as a warning about organized loyalty. Madison wrote that faction joined citizens by a common passion or interest adverse to the rights of others or to the public good. He hoped an extended republic would multiply interests and make domination harder. Modern party identification shows the same structure from the inside. Labels help citizens navigate complexity, but those labels can also train citizens to interpret facts through prior loyalty. That is where the text turns tactical. A party label can serve as a fast cue about judges, taxation, regulation, foreign policy, and governing style. Campaigns, media outlets, and advocacy networks know this, so they repeat the label until it becomes a social signal as much as a policy signal. The word on the ballot carries accumulated coalition meaning from church networks, labor history, cable news, neighborhood culture, and family memory. The signal is efficient because so much prior sorting sits behind it. The danger appears when the shortcut outruns institutional fit. A president gets blamed for global inflation, a governor for federal conditions, Congress for bureaucratic lag, and local officials for state mandates. A voter may cast an issue vote for an office that lacks the power to deliver the promised outcome. In that setting, the party label can clarify responsibility, but it can also shield allies from accountability by converting performance into team defense. The source tension sits between competence and belonging. Citizens need shortcuts because the system is too large to process without them. Citizens also need enough distance from the shortcut to ask whether the office can act, whether the evidence is current, and whether the label still predicts behavior. Federalist number 10 survives because it names the risk cleanly. Organized identity can help the republic function and still teach citizens to prefer faction comfort over judgment. Voter decision-making is not a morality play about smart and foolish citizens. It is a system of signals under information scarcity. Party identification, candidate image, issue salience, retrospective judgment, prospective judgment, community cues, campaign contact, and turnout rules all shape behavior. The responsible citizen does not pretend to float above those influences. The responsible citizen learns to inspect them. The sharper questions stay the same even after the slogans fade. Which shortcut is doing the work? Does it fit the office? Does the party label still predict this candidate's likely behavior? Is performance being judged at the right institutional level? Is style outrunning capacity? Are administrative barriers preventing other citizens from turning preference into a ballot? Campaigns will continue to use voter signals because they work. Parties will keep simplifying politics because voters need simplification. The danger begins when simplification becomes surrender. A citizen who never reads beyond the label becomes easier to mobilize and easier to mislead. The remedy is not to demand impossible expertise from every voter. The remedy is to connect shortcuts to checks. A voter can use party identification, then inspect one issue, one office, one source of performance evidence, and one institutional limit. That small discipline changes the shortcut from reflex into judgment. The unresolved judgment remains alive in every election. Are party labels and voter heuristics responsible tools for navigating a large republic, or do they train citizens to treat politics as identity defense rather than public judgment? The honest answer may depend less on the shortcut itself than on whether the voter ever checks it against evidence. The unresolved question is whether party identity helps citizens judge politics or gives loyalty a way to outrun judgment.
If you're curious how I'm using AI to build these lectures and reshape higher education, visit thelibertytolearn.com. I'll see you in class.